government yesterday announced sweeping tax concessions and slashed prices on fuel, saying it was confident of meeting the budget deficit target of 4.9% for 2018 by sharply reducing expenditure by limiting the number of ministries. The Finance Ministry announced wide-ranging changes in taxes spanning multiple sectors, aiming at encouraging production and simplifying the tax system. The new measures are targeted at giving relief to consumers and encouraging inward remittances and savings, according to the statement issued by the Finance Ministry. Accordingly, the special commodity levy will be reduced on dal by 5 rupees per kilogram, chickpeas by 5 rupees per kilogram, and by 25 rupees per kilogram on black gram. Customs duty will also be waived on wheat grain to 9 rupees per kilogram from the existing waiver of 6 rupees per kilogram. Sugar will also be brought under the special commodity levy, whereby the applicable taxes on sugar will also be reduced by 10 rupees per kilogram. Accordingly, the commodity prices will be reduced with immediate effect. The price of octane 92 petrol has been reduced by 10 rupees per litre, auto diesel by 7 rupees per litre, and lubricants, including the 2T lubricant used in three-wheelers and small agricultural engines, by 10 rupees per litre. At the same time, a cost-based pricing mechanism will be implemented on fuel in place of the monthly fuel price formula. A guaranteed price scheme will be introduced for paddy, onion and potatoes produced locally by farmers. Accordingly, the special commodity levy will be raised during the harvesting period to protect farmers through remunerative guaranteed prices. As potatoes and bee onions are being harvested, SCL on potatoes and bee onions will be maintained at 40 rupees per kilogram. Interest and penalty interest incurred by farmers and small paddy mill owners on loans of up to a maximum of 50 million rupees from all commercial banks during the past 3 years will be written off in full and will be borne by the government. The maximum threshold on loan advances given by Samruddhi banks to Samruddhi beneficiaries to support their livelihood activities will be increased by 10,000 rupees. Fertilizer prices for paddy will be maintained at 500 rupees per 50 kilogram bag, and fertilizer prices for other crops will be reduced to 1,000 rupees per 50 kilogram bag from 1,500 rupees per 50 kilogram bag. The concessionary income tax rate of 14% on agriculture is presently applied only for the companies engaged in agricultural businesses. The income of individuals from agricultural undertakings will also be reduced from the existing maximum rate of 24% to 14%, so that individual farming agriculture is also encouraged. The concessionary income tax rate of 14% is presently applicable under the SME categories only for companies. This rate will be extended to include individuals providing professional services. Therefore, the income tax rate for professional services will be reduced from 24% to 14%. Withholding tax will be exempted on interest on any savings and fixed deposits maintained in any financial institution. To encourage local entrepreneurs, professionals and migrant workers to remit their earnings in foreign currency on services provided outside Sri Lanka, income tax will be exempted on such remittances. The adverse impact created by high indirect taxes will be mitigated by the simplification of VAT and NBT. The VAT threshold will be increased from 12 million rupees per annum to 24 million rupees per annum. The threshold for the VAT liability of the wholesale and retail sector will also be increased from 50 million rupees to 100 million rupees per 12 months, providing benefits to small traders and businesses. The VAT rate applicable on the import of sworn timber will be reduced to 5% to support the local construction industry. VAT on the import of fabric will be exempt, providing benefits to small and medium-sized garment manufacturers. Considering the high tax imposed on telecommunication services, the telecommunication levy of 25% will be reduced to 15%.
Sri Lanka's sovereign dollar bonds and the rupee plunged to record lows, while the nation's stocks surged the most in 5 years as the political turmoil sent equity and bond investors to opposite ends of the risk spectrum. Moody's Investors Service said the crisis would inflict lasting damage to investor confidence. Stock bulls, including Mark Mobius, took a different view, namely that the upheaval may pave the way for a government focused on boosting economic growth. Sri Lanka's 6.75% 2028 dollar bonds fell 3 cents to a record low of 87.8 cents on the dollar, the most since the debt was sold in April, and the rupee slid 0.7% to a lifetime low of 174.15 per dollar after former Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapaksa was sworn in as Prime Minister in a move that current leader Ranil Wickremesinghe described as a quote-unquote anti-democratic coup. The Colombo All-Share Index rallied 1.9%, the biggest gain since September 2013. The upheaval comes as Sri Lanka faces significant bond maturities, including a $1 billion bond due in January and a $500 million debt due in April, according to data compiled by Bloomberg. The crisis is credit negative, and uncertainty about the direction of Sri Lanka's future policy could dent investor confidence, Moody's said. However, Mobius Capital Partners told Bloomberg there may be a silver lining to the political problem, as there could be a more focused government program.
The World Bank said ongoing reforms are gathering momentum, with their impact yet to be realized and measured by doing business. The World Bank further stated that countries of region have collectively carried out 19 business reforms during the past year, with an average of more than 2 reforms per economy. India, in 77th place in the doing business ranking, is the highest ranked economy in South Asia, followed by Bhutan at 81st and Sri Lanka securing the 100th spot. According to the World Bank, reforms such as streamlining process to obtain construction permits, introduction of online tax-paying systems and streamlining registrations of business properties have made the country to move up in doing business index.
The selling rate of the US dollar stood at 177.32 cents. As of this evening, the Sri Lankan rupee had appreciated and the selling rate of the US dollar stood at 175 rupees and 82 cents. Issuing a release, Lanka IOC says it has reduced the prices of Lanka Auto Diesel by 11 rupees per litre and Lanka Petrol 92 by 2 rupees per litre. Thereby, a litre of Lanka Auto Diesel will be sold at 118 rupees at IOC filling stations from midnight today, and a litre of Lanka Petrol 92 octane will be sold at 153 rupees.
Very good evening to you. You're joining me, Azra Hassan, and with me tonight is Dhananath Fernando, CEO of Advocata Institute. A very good evening to you.
Very good evening, Azra.
Dhananath, now first things first. Political instability in the country, a crisis, and so many things happening right now in Sri Lanka. How has this affected the economy as a whole?
Yes, Azra, I think there is no need for an economic expert to say how bad is the situation and how it's definitely going to impact the economy, for multiple reasons. Because when you have political instability, people are reluctant to invest, and when the policy environment is uncertain and the business environment is uncertain, no one is going to invest or would like to come and do business. So our situation is, it seems we have 2 prime ministers, which we are in trouble of deciding who is actually the real prime minister. Indeed, it's a constitutional crisis that also in other hand shows how vague is our constitutional conditions, because we are in a situation, by simply reading a constitution, we as general citizens can't understand really what's the situation and what has really happened. On the other hand, on a different perspective, in terms of businesses, we are already we are in a crisis, and this crisis
we have been in one, and it's only getting worse.
Exactly, we have been in a crisis since 2012. Because after the war, we had economic growth rate at about 9%, at about 8 to 9%, and which dropped to about 5% in 2013. And for the last 2 years, we had been running at about 4% economic growth rate. And the most optimistic prediction for this year is about again 4.5% to 5%, which is not at all a satisfactory number given the expectation of the people. Because if you really want to jump to a rich country or like a high income earning country, we have to at least maintain about 9 to 8% economic growth for the next few years. If I put it into things into perspective, from independence we have been running at about 4% economic growth. That shows if we run at the same phase, will be Malaysia which is today in 2038.
Right.
At least if we have a modest rate at about 6%, we will be in Malaysia where Malaysia is today in 2031. We will be in Singapore in 2080 if we run at 4%, that is the average we have been since independence, and we will be if we run at 6%, we will be in where Singapore is today in 2060. So that is the impact on people like you and I and the common people. So it will be slow down where we are moving forward and becoming rich, and we are becoming older before we becoming rich.
But Dhananath, now we have the authority is constantly reminding us that this is not really a bad timing. It's just, it's very short term. It's very it's temporary. But they show figures saying that the inflation rate is at this level, the economic growth is at this level. But can we actually rely on the figures and numbers when we have everything happening right in front of our eyes? Can we just let numbers deceive or mislead us like that?
Actually, definitely not, but even the numbers are not looking good, because it is only the inflation which is under control. But other than that, if you look at our budget deficit, which is every time we budget for about 4.8%, but it seems this time also it will go for about 5.3%. Given we were supposed to have the budget on, I think, November 5th or 6th, but since it was postponed or the parliament being prorogued, for the next year there will be not a budget. So it will be very difficult to maintain the budget discipline, because the government is, I think, planning to have a account and get the approval from the parliament. So our expenditure will not be controlled, and we will not be able to maintain within the specific budget limits or the targets that we have been targeting to move forward. So even the numbers are not looking good. Even if you don't depend on the numbers, of course the situation is not looking good. It's quite bad.
Evident, yeah.
Yes. So that's a sad situation. So not having a budget is, of course, gonna worsen the situation, because no one really knows what's happening.
Yeah.
And if you look at the past few years, we have been multiple finance ministers and foreign ministers.
I want to specifically focus on the foreign investors' interest in the country and how this has affected them. I mean, how they will not be able to confide and be confident about our markets here in Sri Lanka. How has
Yes, that's right. If you look at even when we had a unity government where there was an agreement to implement certain policies, our foreign direct investments were not doing very positive. The government, according to the government V2025 policy document, they expected about $5 billion US dollars by 2025, but it was at around 700 to 800 million. And I think the last year they reached $1 billion US dollars, but that is mainly with the Chinese port deal in Hambantota. So our investment environment was not at all conducive because of the red tape. If you look at the corruption and the kickbacks that the officials are requiring, and the number of documents to business registrations where you have to go up and down, that was not at all conducive for a foreign investor to come and invest. And given that situation, you have, of course, a very confusing situation at the moment right now. So this is going to be definitely affecting very badly one hand on the foreign direct investment, and that will also have an impact on the currency on the other hand, because we will not bringing enough dollars to cover our imports.
Yeah.
If you look at another perspective, we already have been warned by certain European countries as well as from US on travel bans, and this is the peak season for tourism. And we have been just recognized as the Lonely Planet #1 position to travel for foreigners, and the day after you have this situation. So that will further bring down the dollars that we are bringing into the country, and that will further worsen the situation. So if you look at, though it's sad, the things are not looking good in terms of foreign direct investment. Of course, even when we had a stable government, there were a lot of things that we were supposed to do, which really didn't happen. We were talking about a one-stop shop. Of course, there were certain initiatives happen, but it was not at all conducive for foreigners. And before I conclude on that particular point, our credit rating has also been in risk, and Moody's Analytics, one of the key credit raters, said we are at about B negative rated. So that is also shows the policy uncertainty and the risk on investing in countries like Sri Lanka.
You are an expert in your industry and talk about numbers, stats and figures and all of that, but people who are watching us right now and the people who are actually going through this struggle, they might not want to know about these numbers and all that, and you know, the struggle they go through is what they can put actually into words. What is your take on things that is currently happening in the country right now, and how do you think we can get out of this situation with the high cost of living, then fuel prices, and that which leads to high transport costs, then food and all of that? What do you think that we as a country can do to get rid of this situation and return back to normalcy?
First of all, they have to resolve this urgent, immediate situation very fast and have a proper policy framework. Whatever the government comes in, have a proper policy framework where whoever who comes to office to work from there, when a government leave, to start from there. But it has to be sort of a not a government centric policy, because when you, this is the other problem, because when you put lot of focus on the government and the government changes, and of course your policy is going to change.
Yeah.
But if you limit the government and if you allow the space for people to work,
as in the government's involvement,
exactly, the government's involvement, if you limit the government's involvement, then the people will have an incentive for their hard work. Because now what happens is, when people do hard work and the government intervene, and everything is going to get reversed, and we have a majority in the government sector, so they are anyway lean towards the government. So when you have a limited government, it will have more space for people to work, so then they will have the incentive. But it's not an overnight policy decision, that comes slowly and slowly, but you have to ensure that policy framework, so people will be incentivized for their hard work. That would be the long term solution. And so then the people will come up with innovations, they will consider taking on the export industry, and because none of the government entities are not supporting exports. I mean, they have this EDB, those are the supporting bodies, but ultimately it's you and I, the private sector, the small entrepreneurs are the one who are exporting and bringing the dollars. It's same as the foreign services that we do.
Yeah.
Our employees are women going abroad and sending back money. So it is the people who are actually carrying this weight. It's not the government. What the government can do is limit the government and government intervention. Exactly what has happened now, they are intervening everywhere. So as you have like limited government interventions, and the people have the space to work hard, so they will get for the amount that they work, and it would be a more free and a conducive environment for the investors to come and invest and take a profit.
Now, just like you suggested, do we have a talent shortage in the country in case we limit the government's intervention into this, and do we have learned and educated people in the country to make decisions?
We have educated people, but of course what we as a policy think tank always encourage is to work with other people from other industries as well. For an instance, I think the best example is your news channel. You have been producing programs which is compatible with the global programs. If you look at all the reality programs that you have been doing, all the Lakshapati program, those have been all globally recognized programs, and you have been able to keep up to that level because of because you have the talent, and of course I am sure you must be getting the consultancy services from the other countries and the experts as well. So there is talent here. Of course that's our main strength, but it further strengthens,
and it's underutilized.
Exactly. It's underutilized, but it further strengthen when you work with the people from other countries as well, because you are bringing their human potential to stimulate the underutilized potential within you to contribute more. So it's important that we work with foreigners. I think there's a fear sometimes when you say there are foreign workers coming in, and of course there are certain things that we have to keep in mind. I'm not saying like bring everybody and work, but it's indeed a conducive environment if we have some of the foreigners to work with us, because if you look at the youth, that's what they are expecting. The first question they would ask in an interview is, what's the exposure that I am getting? Am I getting to travel overseas to get foreign training? Those were the young professionals generally ask questions in these days in an interview. So that shows their hunger to get the potential and the human capital from other countries. So I think we have to enhance that, but we have potential within the country, and the important thing is you have to synergize.
Yeah.
And so then we will be able to come up with more innovations and more export oriented industries which will drive the economy forward.
Thank you, Dhananath Fernando, for joining us.
Sri Lanka has been named as the best country in the world to visit in 2019 by Lonely Planet. Better transport links, new hotels and a growing number of activities were cited as the reason the South Asian island was chosen for the top spot in the guidebook publishers' annual Best in Travel Awards. Tourist visits to Sri Lanka have increased dramatically from 447,890 in 2009 to an all-time high of 2.1 million last year, a figure the Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority hopes will double by 2020. Lonely Planet's Best in Travel lists the top 10 countries, sites and regions alongside other travel experiences for the year ahead, ranked by the staff of Lonely Planet, including editors and contributors from around the world. Germany is rated second in the country's list and Zimbabwe comes in third. In fifth position is Kyrgyzstan, while Copenhagen, Shenzhen in China and Novi Sad in Serbia were named as the best cities to travel to in 2019.
Revenue from tea exports in the first 9 months of the year showed a decline of Rs 800 million, with production dropping by 3.5 million kilograms as all categories of bulk tea, packet tea and tea bags showed a decrease. For the period January to September 2018, exports totaled 212.3 million kilograms compared to 215.8 million kilograms for January to September 2017, recording a decrease of 3.5 million kilograms. On a cumulative basis, all the main categories of exports such as bulk tea, packet tea and tea bags have shown a year-on-year decrease. Meanwhile, total revenue of Rs 172.6 billion translates to a deficit of Rs 0.8 billion compared to Rs 173.4 billion from January to September 2017. However, the total FOB value for January to September 2018 of Rs 813.09 shows a gain of Rs 9.33 compared to Rs 803.76 from January to September 2017. Sri Lanka tea exports for September 2018 remained static, totaling 25.6 million kilograms compared to September 2017. Bulk tea together with tea bags have showed a year-on-year growth, while packeted tea shows a decrease compared to the corresponding period of 2017. Analyzing the total revenue of Rs 20.1 billion reveals a deficit of Rs 0.8 billion compared to the Rs 20.9 billion of September 2017.
Sri Lanka introduces business-to-consumer direct transactions under e-commerce. Sri Lanka has set up a regulatory framework that would allow companies to commence business-to-consumer sales to online buyers overseas up to the value of $3,000 each. The Finance Ministry confirmed that companies or exporters in Sri Lanka can now send goods without submitting a customs declaration application to the Sri Lanka Customs. However, at the end of each month, exporters are required to submit one customs declaration application to Sri Lanka Customs covering all transactions. The Ministry of Finance said the plan was announced in the 2018 budget by Finance Minister Mangala Samaravira, enabling Sri Lankan companies to initiate B2C direct e-commerce transactions with overseas customers. The Best Annual Report on Accounts Awards, which was organized for the second consecutive year, was held alongside the annual Chartered Public Finance Accountancy Convocation, where public sector accountants and auditors were conferred with the qualification to help strengthen the public sector financial management in Sri Lanka. A total of 4 awards were given under the Pradeshya Sabha sector, with the Manmulai Pradeshya Sabha Arayampathy being judged the winner, while the North Thandiya Pradeshya Sabha was adjudged first runner-up, and Karuwala Gaswava Pradeshya Sabha receiving the award for second runner-up. The Nikavarattiya Pradeshya Sabha received an award of compliance for the same category. Under the Provincial Council sector, the North Central Province Provincial Council was adjudged the winner, while the Northern Province came in as first runners-up. In the Urban Council sector, the winner was the Balangoda Urban Council, while the Kalutara Urban Council was the first runner-up. Under the Municipal Councils category, the Dehiwala Mount Lavinia Municipal Council was adjudged the winner, while the Kandy Municipal Council was the first runner-up in the same category. The Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Government won under the Ministry category, while under the Department sector, the Excise Department was adjudged the winner, with the Sri Lanka Air Force coming in as the first runner-up. Under the Research Institutions category, the National Engineering Research and Development Centre was adjudged the winner, while the Industrial Technology Institute was the first runner-up. In the Statutory Board sector, the winner was the Sri Lanka Accreditation Board for Conformity Assessment, while the Marine Environment Protection Authority was the first runner-up and the Coconut Cultivation Board came in as the second runner-up. The University of Moratuwa was adjudged the winner under the Universities category, while the University of Peradeniya was adjudged first runner-up, and the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura was the second runner-up, while the Open University of Sri Lanka, Vayamba University, Buddhist and Pali University, University of Colombo and University of Sabragamua received compliance awards.
Youth Speak Forum is a premier event that brings together both young and senior leaders to form a diverse cross-sector and multi-generational space for inspiring conversations around pressing global issues. The forum aims to create an environment where people from diverse backgrounds can cross-pollinate ideas, share insights and gain new perspectives to create actionable outcomes to push the world forward. The event saw the participation of Vice Chancellor of the University of Jaffna, Professor Ratnam Vigneswaran, Chairman of National Economic and Development Authority, Dakshita Bogolagama, Dr. Deshapriya Vijayatunga, Policy Advisor to the Youth Network of SDG in Sri Lanka, Senior Lecturer at the Southeastern University, K.M. Mubarak, Senior Lecturer at Sinek Campus, Sampath Sirivardhana, and several other dignitaries.
At that time, year 2000, it was the biggest challenge was the poverty. At that time, they realized more than 2,000 children, 2,000 people of the day are dying without food and medicines. Medicines were available, but people can't afford. So that time, then the 8 goals were declared. That was called Millennium Development Goals.
In fact, I feel the quality education should be the central focus among all the 17 goals, because quality education will have an impact on all other 16 goals. And I will just pick few objectives which is related to youth. Objective 1 is to ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable, quality, technical, vocational and tertiary education, including university education. Number 2, increase number of youth who have relevant skills for employment, but not just an employment, a decent job or decent employment and entrepreneurship. And third, eliminate gender disparities in education and so on.
Rather than working under someone, you have to create your own ideas. Then only as an individual, as a society, as a country, will be able to move forward to achieve the sustainable development goals. We have to achieve the inclusive economic growth. In order to achieve inclusive economic growth, all the sectors should be plugged and move forward. Until such time, this will be at the same level, because government does not have export promotion policy and the import substitution policy.
LEADER was created to provide entrepreneurs with the ability to access finance for technology, information in terms of market assistance, market linkage, and to reach global markets. So this was created in order to give entrepreneurs a platform to grow, both in terms of reaching local markets and international markets.